All right, welcome back to another episode of, I guess we're going to call this BG Perform Reacts. I don't know, we'll figure something out. But just another episode of the content that I found on X that I'm going to go through, pick some topics, things, ideas people are talking about, and just give my opinion on them, my insights, my experience, that sort of thing. But before we get into that, just some admin stuff. If you do want to work with me online, I am accepting clients online and in person at ABC here in Latham, but online mostly I'm trying to gear a lot of that towards helping more people on the online space because I have a broader base that I can help people with. If you do want to join in on that or get more information, you can check me out on my website, www.bgperform.com/training. Or you can click the link that's in my Twitter or my X bio, or just like my Instagram bio that has everything from my YouTube, podcast, blog, Instagram, all the profiles, all the things you need, and all the information you need to start working with me. So also, if you are a coach and you're looking to take your career to the next level and, find a way to get around people who, like myself and Coach Mike, really care about coaching and want to, we want this to be our career for the rest of our lives. And we've set up a group called the Coach Connect of like-minded coaches who just want to improve and just want to be better. We created modules and we've created, a system that helps coaches really define what professional coaching is and how to actually make it a career. So if you are interested in that, shoot me a message, DM me Coach Connect, or just reach out on any of the website or anything like that, and I can get you started on that today. So, let's dive into this. So we're gonna share the screen here. So I did this last week. Just a little bit of information that I found through X that I just want to kind of give my opinion on. There's some things I agree with, some things I don't. We're gonna start here. So another tweet from Fred Duncan. I know I share a lot of his stuff, but I do like a lot of what he shares on Twitter. He says Sergey Bubka is one of the best examples of what complete preparation looks like: physical, technical, tactical, physiological. He wasn't chasing isolated numbers. He understood the weight room, the runway, the technical work. All of it existed to serve the event. Is that it? Maybe it was a typo. But yes, I think the weight room's an amazing tool for athletes. I think some athletes, especially people who are not competing in like weight room sports, I think they focus too much on the numbers. And I think it's partly because of coaches having to show data to keep their jobs. And I think it's kind of gotten to this point where coaches have to show progression in numbers and they have to show progression in strength because, that's their title, strength coach, or, whatever else it might be. And I think what I really like about this tweet is this line here. He wasn't chasing isolated numbers. He understood that the weight room, the runway, the technical work, all of it existed to serve the event. So we as coaches have to understand that at the end of the day, athletes have to perform in their sport. And it's as simple as that. What we give them needs to translate over to that. That doesn't mean that, and why I'm saying that is because I think a lot of times we chase numbers and we chase specific output in the gym. And while that shows like, hey, yes, I'm getting someone stronger, does that directly relate into the field? I don't know, and I don't think for everybody it does. And I think general strength qualities, while they may not exist in regards to like, there is no general strength program. When we talk about general program, when we talk about the ability to complete multiple tasks, with relative competency, right? And that could be, picking yourself up off the ground, pulling yourself up to a bar, moving your body weight, moving external load, all that stuff. And general fitness to me is the ability to do lots of things very well, and not have any or as little pain as possible when doing that, right? And I think that the gym oftentimes gets kind of confused with the numbers, and obviously the numbers mean a lot. But I think in regards to athletic performance, the goal is performance, right? So even if our bench doesn't go up 15%, 10%, whatever, if the performance is improving, then to me, that's a win. I think that obviously the numbers help us in a lot of ways to progress, but I like this idea of not chasing isolated numbers. We got a tweet from Joe Aratari, who I think is friends with my cousin. I think he runs the gym in Rochester. But for 99% of middle school and high school kids over the years, 3 to 4 days of skill work per week and 2 to 3 days of lifting athletic development will yield a lot more return than 5 to 7 days of skill work and 0 days of lifting and athletic development. And yeah, I agree with this. I think, what he's saying here is when you're just playing your sport, you're getting a lot out of it, but you're going to get more if you throw in some lifting days as well. And I think that's a really big thing that happens in season with a lot of athletes. And I think it's because a lot of coaches don't know how to manage in season lifting. And I think they bite off more than they can chew. And they think it always has to be this huge output based session. And a lot of the times in season, people will respond to, low set, high reps. So just instead of really pushing a session, just getting that burn and getting, what we could call, I don't really know what I guess like waking up the muscle, you could kind of say in like in a layman's term way of describing it, but like just something simple enough to feel it gets a lot done. And just keeping them in the idea of like getting external load, challenging the central nervous system in some capacity. And again, there's a lot of ways you can do that. But for me, doing it 2 to 3 days a week on top of skill training, meaning like sport training, yes, you're gonna you're gonna keep yourself safer. 2, you're not gonna lose muscle mass. And 3, it's helping you develop yourself physically and mentally to get or continue on the season. I don't know if there's science behind it, but I'm sure if you actually go back and look at everything in regards to like lifting versus not lifting, the ones who lift usually are healthier long term as long as they're doing the right stuff, and they're probably more resilient and they're probably better athletes overall as well, outside of like the main gifted athletes. So, all right, we got Zach Goodman. Why does our main lift training mostly fall in the 3 to 5 rep range? He says it maximizes type 2 fiber recruitment. It trains more motor units in untrained athletes than singles and doubles, allows for repetition to take place, creating more efficiency, and it doesn't leave athletes sore. So what he's specifically talking about is like the main lift of a training session. And I'm assuming he's talking in regards to athletics, but when we talk about the main movement we're doing for a session, a lot of the times you'll see that rep range fall anywhere from like 3 to 10 reps. And it kind of depends, 3 to 8 reps, I would say. And that really just kind of depends on the output that you're trying to achieve here. And when what he's kind of talking about here is what a lot of people would consider like power training, where, we're kind of in this in between of moving a lot of weight, but not doing like heavy singles, because heavy singles can be pretty demanding on a lot of people, and they're really very skill based. And I think that's another thing people kind of miss out on. But a lot of these heavy 1 rep singles or 1 rep max movements are there's a lot of prerequisites that go into it, right? And something as simple as taking a step back and doing triples or 4 rep sets, 5 rep sets, they take a lot of that high level skill or high level force production out of the equation and just make it a lot easier to complete a movement as best as someone can. And you do get more room to make mistakes because it is a lighter weight. And you also just get more reps, which is more practice. And I think that's something a lot of athletes need. I'm not the biggest fan of going for like 1 rep maxes. Like even doubles to a certain extent are all right, but I probably like doubles, triples, 4 rep sets and 5 rep sets are probably where I'm going to stay for any like super heavy movements. Just because again, the risk to reward ratio on a 1 rep max for a lot of these athletes who don't have a lot of time in the gym, like training age, they don't have a lot of time lifting weights correctly. Especially with some athletes who have like events coming up or have competitions or, whatever it might be, the risk to reward ratio for getting that number just to me doesn't always make sense. So this 3 to 5 rep range is a really safe range. It's a really great range to still get that stimulus while not throwing someone in a completely, what's the word I guess I'm looking for? Like a completely unknown environment of like a 1 rep max, because you're not really sure how they're going to respond, the loads, the actual physical capabilities of the person. It can get very confusing. So and I think this last part is really important too, is it doesn't leave an athlete sore. Once you start to get lower into those rep ranges, anywhere from like 1 to 5 reps, oftentimes you might not be as sore because that's more of like a muscle recruitment thing than it is like a muscle damage thing that you'll see in like hypertrophy or these high rep sets. So you're going to avoid that muscle soreness. You'll get that central nervous system fatigue, but this is a really good way to kind of create strength and power without really fatiguing the body overall. Okay, so we got functional strength routines. Again, I think this is something I didn't totally agree with. And I think reason being is I think sometimes we forget that the goal is to train, right? And I think sometimes we want things to look like they do something. And I think a lot of times we get too creative for our own good, and we miss the point. And I think this is missing the point, this video. I think there's a lot of things that need to happen, and I don't think they need to happen like this. I think they can happen like this if someone's interested in it. I think that the functional strength routines he talks about is kind of something I talked about in the podcast that's coming up this week that you guys will hear on Wednesday. And I think it's just, again, it's putting yourself in a position where it needs to look a certain way to be fancy to get some sort of result. And I think depending on what the outcome this guy is looking for, this could probably be achieved in a lot less skilled way, like a very dumbed down way, because whatever he's trying to achieve, like this just seems very aggressive. This seems very, and aggressive is not the right word, just very, like, just too much. You're doing too much. And I think with something like this, the word functional gets thrown out, and then magically this is all okay to do because it's supposed to translate better to life and movement. I'm not really sure, but I think understanding the body is really important. I think understanding these areas and what's actually necessary in training is really important. And I think just throwing the word functional in front of something and saying it looks like a movement inside of life doesn't really do anybody well, because it just confuses people. Again, if it works and it feels good, no one's stopping you. And I think it's good. Whatever creates movement is more important. I think from my perspective as a trainer and a professional coach, this just kind of gives the idea that training has to be this fancy, over the top thing. And to me, it misses the point. So Dean Turner, put me on the record. This is the greatest barbell movement in the history of barbell movements. Awesome setup, very efficient, effective back exercise, light years better than a bent over row. Now, I agree and disagree. I love seal rows. I think they're amazing. And I think that they are, again, a very easy movement when you have the equipment. If you have this sort of bench, setting it up without this sort of bench is kind of a pain in the ass. But I think if you have this sort of bench here, great movement, a lot of feedback you can get from this and a lot of work you can get done doing a movement like this. You can load this pretty heavy because it's kind of taking away a lot of, stress on the low back or the legs or other areas that might limit you from lifting more weight. And it just literally focuses on, the back and pulling as much weight as possible. Now, what I don't agree 100% is light years better than a bent over barbell row. Now, obviously, in regards to total weight lifted, yes, like this movement's going to be more efficient. It's going to be more effective. You're going to be able to complete more weight at a single time. But the bent over barbell row is a really important move I think people need to learn. And I think it's not even from a perspective of like lifting more weight. I think it's a perspective of learning how to control weight and control your mass and your center of gravity. And it's kind of like finding yourself. And I think that movement, the bent over barbell row, teaches you a lot in regards to strength of the body, strength of the hips, strength of the lower back, strength of the core, and really allows you to kind of, get a lot out of a single movement. Now, if you're just looking to lift the most amount of weight possible, then yes, the seal row is going to be very efficient because it takes away all of that stuff. But if you're looking to learn, not only how to row, but to, work on some of these patterns and become more efficient and have it translate over a little bit more to like your other lifts, then the bent over barbell row is going to be better because, again, it limits you in regards to like how much weight you can lift, but it's also teaching you very good position and teaching you how to, again, control the spine through a range of motion, and also gives you a little bit more work on the posterior chain, which is, in my opinion, super important. But again, I love seal rows and I think they're a great movement. Khamzat Chimaev was so drained from training that I had to lie down on the ground. I was watching this a little bit earlier. I think a lot of these MMA guys, obviously, I have a lot of experience in MMA. I've trained the best of the best in the sport. And I think MMA guys get really caught up into this has to feel hard, like this right here. So this falling onto the ground, feeling dead, that's what they feel has to happen. And I think guys like this, I don't know who this is. I've kind of read a couple things about him, and I guess he's been in the industry for a long time. So I don't want to sound disrespectful, but I think stuff like this is very ego driven. And I think Khamzat has a history of getting sick. And I think Khamzat has a history of also pulling out and struggling with weight cuts. And this is the reason why, right? Like, this is just consistently pushing yourself to the brink. And this is a very, again, this is setting him up for a very short career, very, very high peak, low valley type of career, which we've seen with him. And again, like when you see this type of training, it kind of explains. There you go. When you see someone who's pushing themselves this hard consistently inside of their training, not to say that it's wrong, right? Because when you watch Khamzat fight, it's good. But even when you've watched Khamzat fight, he doesn't have a gas tank. And I think that's really important to understand, because this type of training, this doesn't equal a gas tank, right? Like, this high effort falling onto the ground does not equal a gas tank. It equals high intensity. And I think when you see Khamzat fight in his truest form, if you look at the Gilbert Burns fight, if you look at his fight against Kamaru Usman, the Gilbert Burns fight, especially after he was dead after 3 rounds, right? The Usman fight, there was 2 more rounds in that fight. I think Usman comes back and beats him. And I think that this is a constant example, or a great example, of why this training does not work long term. I think his style works really well with this type of training, but I think the right person at the right time, Sean Strickland, can wear him down and make him look really bad. And I think this type of training is a lot of the catalyst as to of the problems he has. And this is why I just don't think this type of training works long term. So, and I think a lot of people will probably agree with me, especially in the MMA space, but I think cardio is different than explosive, endurance or strength endurance. And I'm talking about real endurance, and this is not real endurance. We'll do a couple more here. So this is what our marches look like. This is from Coach Fahey. This is what our marches look like: a low, wide waddle with heavy weight and a loading pin for 2 minutes. Oh, I love me a march. This is also great. Like, this is actually a cool setup. But I like doing it on the belt squat. If you guys do have a belt squat, it's essentially the same idea. You have this setup right here with like a belt on you, and then the weight's kind of pulling directly down underneath. And what he's right about, which is really good, is this low, wide waddle. And I think a lot of people, they mess up their marches because you see them kind of lift their knees up very high, and they're almost doing like a high knee in place, like with the march. What you want to do here is you want to keep these legs straight, and you want to shift that weight side to side while getting your arms involved. So it's kind of like you're moving your body into a side to side motion, like we would call a waddle. And you can load that up, and oh my God, that destroys the glutes. And if there's anything I can tell you that works with the glutes, it's this march. And they're very effective, and they're very low skill. So you don't really need to worry about a lot of things as long as you have like a belt squat, or you could set up something like this. But marches are so effective for long term. Yeah, we'll talk about my boy Cameron. Cameron is a very good friend of mine. A very wise dude. He is 53. He moves like butter. And I think a lot of people have been starting to find out about him lately. He has a pretty big Instagram following. He created this thing called Budokan movement system, which is essentially a MMA based movement system with yoga and other types of training that he's created. And he's very athletic, and yes, he's 53. And as you can see, he's a very creative mover. He's created a lot of different systems and helped a lot of different people. And I think this is something that I've personally learned from him as I've talked to him more and more, is that movement can be a lot of things. But this system right here he's created is super important. And I think that if you ever take the time to actually want to learn movement, he is one of the first places I would go in regards to flowing and just learning how to navigate the body in regards to MMA a little bit better. He's a great person as well, a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom. So I think his Instagram is just Cameron Shane. You can let him know I sent you. And yeah, so I think that's it for me today, guys. We'll jump over a couple of these next time as I find more. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. As again, check me out on the website, www.bgperform.com/training if you want to work with me. And then if you do want to join the Coach Connect, you can just send me a video or send me a message and I'll get you all set up for that. But I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.